When looking far back into the past, the history of present-day Ecuador reaches as far as around 2,000 years before Christ. Even at that early time, the first groups of hunters and gatherers lived in the fertile coastal regions, the Andean highlands, and the Amazon basin. From approximately 2,500 years before Christ, people began to settle permanently, practiced agriculture, and developed simple social structures. During this early phase, the Valdivia culture emerged, which is considered one of the oldest known cultures in the Americas, and became especially famous for its ceramic figurines. Between 2,500 before Christ and 500 before Christ, further cultures developed, including the Macalila and Charrera cultures, which achieved significant advances in pottery, trade, and social organization. From about 500 years before Christ, more complex communities arose with regional centers of power. People used irrigation systems, engaged in long-distance trade, and developed religious rituals. Around 200 years before Christ, agricultural techniques were further refined, leading to noticeable population growth. In the centuries that followed after Christ, several regional cultures formed. Among them was the Cañari culture in the south of the country, which strongly shaped the highlands from approximately 500 years after Christ onward. In the 15th century after Christ, the Inca expanded their empire northward. Under the rule of Topa Inca Yupanqui and later Huayna Capac, the territory of present-day Ecuador was incorporated into the Inca Empire. The Inca built roads, administrative centers, and fortified settlements, yet they encountered strong resistance from the local population, especially from the Cañari people. This period came to an abrupt end in the year 1534 after Christ, when Spanish conquerors under the leadership of Francisco Pizarro entered the region. With the Spanish conquest, the colonial period began. Quito was taken in the year 1534 after Christ, and shortly afterward, other cities such as Guayaquil were founded. The territory first became part of the Viceroyalty of Peru, and from the year 1717 after Christ, was placed under the Viceroyalty of New Granada. Colonial society was strictly hierarchical. The indigenous population was forced into labor in mines, workshops, and plantations. Economically, cocoa cultivation played a central role, while power and wealth remained in the hands of a small Spanish elite. At the beginning of the 19th century after Christ, resistance against Spanish rule grew stronger. In the year 1809 after Christ, one of the first independence uprisings in South America took place in Quito. Although it was initially suppressed, it marked the beginning of a long process of liberation. The ideas of the Enlightenment, along with independence movements across the Americas, strengthened the desire for self-determination. The decisive turning point occurred on the 24th of May, 1822 after Christ, when the Spanish forces were defeated at the Battle of Pichincha by troops led by Antonio José de Sucre. Ecuador was thus finally freed from colonial rule. After independence, the territory became part of the newly founded state of Gran Colombia under the leadership of Simón Bolívar. However, this political union lasted only a short time. In the year 1830 after Christ, Ecuador separated from Gran Colombia and became an independent republic. The decades that followed were marked by political conflicts, power struggles, and frequent changes of government. In the year 1845 after Christ, the so-called Marxista Revolution led to the overthrow of conservative rule. Toward the end of the 19th century after Christ, the country experienced economic growth through the cocoa trade. Between 1875 and 1895 after Christ, Ecuador became one of the world's most important cocoa exporters. At the same time, social inequality deepened. During the 20th century after Christ, periods of political instability, military coups, and economic crises followed. Between 1930 and 1960 after Christ, civilian and military governments alternated repeatedly. From the 1960s of the 20th century after Christ, oil production gained increasing importance and profoundly transformed the economy and society. Despite temporary economic successes, social tensions continued to arise. In the 1990s of the 20th century, after Christ, Ecuador experienced severe financial crises, political protests, and frequent changes in leadership. In the 21st century after Christ, Ecuador continues to face major challenges, including social inequality, economic dependency, and political stability. Nevertheless, the country's history remains deeply shaped by cultural diversity, indigenous traditions, and an enduring pursuit of self-determination and justice.